Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hey, everybody. This is Tracy Stuckrath with the Eating at a Meeting podcast, and I am live in Las Vegas for my second to last trip of the year, business trip of the year, but I'm here for IMEX in Las Vegas. And this is the biggest convention of our industry.
It is,
yes. Yeah. We've got, almost 11,000?
Yep, 10.5. I've been hearing the numbers are going between 10 and 11. So let's go with that.
10 and 11. That's fantastic. So I'm going to be talking to a variety of different people while I'm here in Las Vegas. But today, my first interview is with Dale and Eric, who Dale Hudson runs IMEX, right?
No.
Dale, okay.
Not. I don't run the whole
okay. So my first interview here at IMEX is with Dale Hudson of IMEX, who is the
Knowledge and Events Director.
Knowledge and Events Director. Make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
And then Eric Wallinger, right?
Yeah.
I said that right. Okay. And then Eric Wallinger, who is the MeetGreen, and he is also partnered with IMEX to manage the sustainability efforts of the conference.
That's correct. And MeetGreen have been working with us for 10 years now. This is our 10th year. So
that's so awesome.
Really, really great to be working with them.
Fantastic. And so in this conversation, I want to talk to them about the sustainability efforts that the show has done since the beginning, right? Yes. And then 10 years into this, how has it changed? What are you seeing? What you're going on? And I ran onto the floor today, working with signage and trash cans, and what are those efforts that are being done? So let's just get started. So 10 years in this relationship.
10 years, yes. We started slowly. We never, we want to always work with our partners who are all of our suppliers to make sure that we do it correctly from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We're not the sort of company that insists that everything's done overnight, because that's never a good way to start. So I'm going to say with any sustainable effort, pick a few things a year and focus on them and do them really well. Awesome. And I think that's what we've done from the very beginning. That was in Frankfurt as well. We picked a few things at the beginning and we said we're going to do these things well this year. And with that sort of mentality, we have built up a really good sustainable product now for IMEX. Again, we're at a new property, so we are starting a little bit from the beginning again. With the Venetian, we used to work with Chef. We worked literally with everybody from the venue, and with GES, everybody from GES. So we work together to make sure that all the partners are talking to each other as well. So it's not just them talking to us, it's them talking to each other to make sure that those initiatives that we're working towards are implemented.
That's amazing, because you get a lot. And yesterday in a session, somebody's like, well, where do I start? And you think about all the different aspects that go into an event, and you have to be sustainable in all those things, but you can't do it.
You can't, and you'll overwhelm yourself and you'll give up. And I've seen so many people do that. And then they're like, well, it was just too hard.
Right.
And yes, it is. If you think that you can be 100% zero overnight, it's too hard. It is. So, focus on waste, or focus, even if it's just your energy, or reduce paper in the office. Do something to get you going. And when you get those small wins, it encourages you to think, oh, well, if we did that, maybe we can do this. And you can keep pushing the bar a little bit each year. And getting your CEO or your chairman on board, really important at the beginning as well.
And something you just said there was even reducing paper in your office. I mean, that's not even thinking about your event. That's thinking about what you're doing even before you get to your event.
Yes.
And did you see a remarkable difference in that from the last 10 years?
I saw a remarkable difference within the office.
Okay.
So those people that were starting to work on it within the office started to get enthusiastic about it, and now have a whole green team. within IMEX, and they run it. I'm not very much involved on the green team. Ron Jaleur does all that, and he has a team in each, a person from each department, and they meet up once or so a month, and they work on initiatives as well. So it's very much coming from the inside rather than one person trying to push it, because then it is very difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming, and especially when I talk about it from the food perspective, which is what I do, and that's even overwhelming too. Yes. So, all right, Eric, I know you weren't here with MeetGreen from 10 years, right? You came on with MeetGreen when?
2017 was my first IMEX.
Yeah. Okay, all right, awesome. On site. So but you had worked to plan out a little bit up for then, right?
Okay. I'd say 5 years.
Yeah, this will be my fifth year.
Yeah. So you're ingrained in this whole program as well. So tell everybody about MeetGreen, and then how you work with IMEX to do this.
Yeah, MeetGreen is a sustainable event consulting and management firm. So we have event managers. The division I work in is consulting, and so we work with clients like IMEX. And I feel like we work to try and build a bridge between the client, like IMEX in this case, and the venue. And there's sort of integration and kind of work that goes on there in terms of the project management that wouldn't be possible without like a third party getting involved.
Okay.
One of the things that's, I think, so commendable about the way that IMEX has gone about this, and I shared this with them when we all arrived on site, is a quote that's been in my head for the last year is, sustainable events do not happen, they're planned. If you do nothing and show up on site with good intentions, it will default to the easiest route. There's just too many headwinds. And even as Dale alluded to, it's really about continuous improvement in this and kind of measured gains, relationships built. One thing that really also set IMEX apart is, I remember back in those early days, starting at MeetGreen, IMEX team members would be updating their RFP language in the off season. We're sourcing new suppliers. Not so many of them are the same suppliers, but the RFP changed. And so they would consult with us for like, what's some language to raise the bar, or does this make sense? And so the site selection of Mandalay Bay, where we are now, very much went through that process back in 2017 and 2018 in terms of, this was something that was considered and discussed.
And so that was 5 years ago that you started working with them to plan this forward, because that's when you signed the contract.
Around 2 years ago, we actually started to have planning meetings.
Okay, gotcha.
That's when we started to meet up with the different things.
But you were contracting 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago we were contracting.
And that's the other interesting twist, is that in January of 2019, we convened here. It actually snowed. I think
in Las Vegas. Wow.
Yes, it was very odd.
And we spent a full day meeting with members of the MGM team. So we spent some really dedicated deep dive time with the MGM sustainability team, as well as a number of hours with food and beverage, with operations waste management. And it didn't seem crazy at the time, but it did occur to us, like, when has anyone ever talked about sustainability 2 years for a whole day ahead of the event?
Wow.
And I thought it was there's commendable best practice. But as it turned out, this event would be in so much weaker standing if we hadn't had that meeting.
Yeah.
It really was like a hedge against the unexpected. We didn't know anything that was coming down the pipeline. We didn't even get a site visit this year for this event.
Because of COVID. Yeah.
COVID starting early has many, many benefits.
Yes.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah. Because we don't, and even yesterday I was talking in my session on trends in food and beverage. I'm like, how many of you plan your food and beverage more than a month out? And I think one person raised their hand.
Oh gosh.
And you need to be planning your food and beverage, especially now after COVID, planning it even further out because of supply chain issues.
Yes.
But even like when before you contract, you talk about your food and beverage, especially a thing. Yeah.
But that was fortuitous. I mean, we had no idea this was going to be coming in the next few months from that meeting. So it does pay to plan early. It really does.
When I saw you the other day, you're like, this is the first time I've been in here in 2.5 years.
it was quite, it's really unusual to arrive at a venue when you haven't done a lot of site visits or had a good few meetings.
Right.
So this was the first time I've ever experienced it that way. But the venue have been incredible. Honestly,
That's good.
They have been great in making sure that we settled in really quickly and we found our feet. Thank goodness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with welcoming almost 11,000 people, that's a huge conference.
Huge.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about some of the efforts that you were doing. So let's just talk about the trash cans and the signage I saw you today doing. You were replacing signage, or there were two different signs for bottles waste. Is that right? And not to, I don't want to, we're not bad mapping anybody, right? We're just talking about things that typically happen.
Yeah, and one of those things is there's a delicate time of when to set bins on a show floor, especially a show floor as big as IMEX is. Which, is there 2,700 exhibitors?
They're 2,700.
So a lot of booths. And also with travel restrictions yesterday, a lot of things moving on the show floor. And so when you put bins out too early, they get waste gets put in them that you don't want to be put in.
Gotcha.
So we take it to the show opening, basically, when we drop our food court bins. But education is a big part of this. And there's a lot of stakeholders at play. There's stewarding in a venue. There's the person that you talk to. And so we always know there's going to be some last minute corrections needed. And so what we're trying to do, especially around the food areas, is have a 3-bin system.
Okay.
Landfill, recycling, and compost.
Okay.
You will see at other parts inside Mandalay Bay as a single stream system, and some of it actually has messaging on it. Back of house waste is sorted at Mandalay Bay, 3 different stages.
Oh, wow.
So it's very thoroughly sorted. It also goes to one of the most high-tech MRFs in the nation with Public Services in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Actually toured that, and it's a very new and very high-tech facility. So there's a lot of safety nets in place, but Las Vegas has a single stream system. I think maybe it's due to the high volumes, or just lots of people coming in. And, so that is the Clark County system. We still try, especially in this show, at the food court, to message appropriately that your waste is being sorted and to help remind folks that there are different streams of your waste.
Well, and because you don't think about that. So what are the 3 different streams? I mean, there's more than just the 3 streams, because I saw it in Italy with Slow Food International. I think there were 8 trash cans that you could put your stuff in, and that's a little kind of overwhelming.
If you have a system like here, where we've done a lot of planning, we're pretty tight on the back dock situation, I don't mind a single stream method, because it kind of it seems to be a good way to handle so many people. But here, recycling for sure. We recycle glass, plastic, aluminum, and on that front, all IMEX sourced water bottles for the food beverage are proud source water, so in aluminum bottles.
Nice.
And so the reason for that is that aluminum has a lot of value in terms of recycling. 74% of the aluminum that's ever been mined is still in existence. So it's said to be infinitely recyclable. Also, Proud Source is based not so far away. I have to make sure I have my geography correct. I thought it was Utah or Idaho, but it's broadly in the region here.
Okay.
Whereas other waters are being flown in from outside the United States.
I have to mention Solus as well. So we've worked with Solus this year for all our speakers.
Okay.
And they work like a milk bottle system. So they deliver the bottles in the morning of the water, and then they come and collect them. At the end of the day, those are recycled, refilled, and brought back to events. And I love that. And they based in Las Vegas. So I'm hoping that that some of the big venues start to work a little bit more with them, because it is a super sustainable way of bringing water in and out of events.
And I met her yesterday after the IAC session, and I think she said that they can be reused 50 times or something like that, which is amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, it's a lot of work, obviously bringing the bottles in, taking the bottles away, but it's worked out that that's really and truly the most sustainable way to bring water in and out of events.
And instead of using, we're just going to scrap the video because I'm not looking at it ever once, but we're recording. But The plasticware, people think that you need to use the recyclable plasticware, but actually using the glassware is actually more recyclable, or is not more recyclable, more sustainable. But
yes, if you're reusing it, right? That's the difference.
At MeetGreen, when we've looked at our numbers internally of what some of those basic baseline best practices are, reusable serviceware is really close to number one. We use it as number one. If you're going to fight one battle in events, that would be a good first one for most events. Try to. The not producing of these materials and not having to recycle it. Right. We have a lot of numbers and models we can feed information into, but massive savings. But there is a break-even point. Someone may argue with you, it is less resource intensive to make a plastic fork initially. Right. But if you use your metal fork 50 times, there are break-even points around that. They tend to be around that 50-point mark. And forks are used 2,500 times.
You use it your whole life, right?
Right, exactly.
It's just so much better.
To use the metal fork. Yes. My niece is really good. She actually has a little carrying case of all of her silverware that she brings with her wherever she travels. And I'm like, I need you to just get her to give me one. So I remember it. Yeah.
On the serviceware front at IMEX, it's interesting. When you serve 11,000 people, in the way that we're serving them there, which is sort of a food outlet concessions rather than buffet, we do use disposable serviceware. It is 100% compostable, and it's really interesting. MGM has done some extensive testing in the region here, and they found that certain products do not break down in the Las Vegas environment composting. It's just a different moisture mix. So the compostable serviceware here is highly fiber, so paper cups instead of a bioplastic cup. But it will be 100% compostable, made into soil. You can even get this soil from Terra Firma in Las Vegas. So it's a real site. Awesome. Yeah. And the serviceware is actually wood, bamboo, so it's renewable. It's called leafware. So I think that we've actually, for going a disposable option, we believe it's the most sustainable disposable option. And we believe it's actually the lower emissions option in terms of if we go on with the plastic.
Awesome. So in the 10 years that you've done this, you've instituted sustainability standards, and then in 5 years, not that it's changed, not that Eric was this wonder power that you are, I know you are, but in the, the difference between the 5 years and then the 10 years, I mean, what are your accomplishments that I know you print them out or you post them every year?
They are. We do it every year. We put out the report, and I would say in our first year, I think we were 85% towards the standards. So they were almost impossible, I think, if you're an event outside, which is kind of why they've been rewritten. Right. I think because it was just unattainable to get the EIC standard. And that's sort of if you're a really large event.
That was when it was still ISO, right? 10 years ago?
No, so it's the EIC one rather than the ISO and the British standards one. We didn't go that route. We went with EIC. And the reason I did go with the EIC is because I find that it pushes you. It pushes you to do better every year because you never quite. For me, it's a good thing that I never quite get there. Right. Because I want. And it was almost on a point, so we were getting more points each year. And I think we got up to 98% towards, didn't we? Wow. At the Venetian 2019.
Yeah, and we're going to kind of rebuild back up.
Because of the new venue.
Well, now we've got the new venue and the EIC have rewritten the standards. So I know we were sort of told that what we're doing, we would very likely be getting quite a good grade because of the way they've been rewritten, because it's now attainable, that you can, and they're doing it on different colors, aren't they? Sort of. Right.
I'm talking to Mariella tomorrow about that.
Yeah, you'll hear from Mariella more about that, but it's, I'm excited about that. I'm excited that we're actually going to get a grade. Yeah. Towards the grade. So that would be really good. But obviously, Eric and I are both being patient. We're in a new venue. And we want to work really cleverly together from the beginning. We don't want to make people feel that that we don't want to work closely with them. We want to work with them on the journey together to get to the destination, rather than us sort of going, everyone says, oh, well, you could ask for this, and I'll no, don't push. I don't believe in sort of, using sort of power in any way to get what you want. I think the only way to get to a really, really good place is to work together on a journey. And I think then everybody feels that journey and they enjoy the journey, and everyone learns along the way. And we do, right? We've been learning. We learned at the Venetian, we're going to learn here. And I think that's the way to work. You don't, it's a journey, and it's something you do together.
And what were the aha moments with specific, not specific people in general, but with different departments that are like, oh, wow, we just learned something, were there any aha moments that you've seen from your vendor partners that they didn't realize that they were doing?
I would say from procurement, actually, with the sands. Wouldn't you say procurement? Because procurement at the beginning, I think, we're a little bit wary, because obviously it's difficult. They've got budgets, they've got costs, they've got places that they need to be at the end of the year, and I think they initially were a little bit like, we can't do it, and then we slowly started to see them actually coming to the meetings, and they were starting to get excited about it as well. And there was excitement in the meetings, and as far as we've managed to do this and we've managed to do that, and like the procurement of the pizza boxes. Remember, that was exciting, and getting in the different burgers, and there was all sorts of little wins that they started to see and we were seeing, and it was exciting together. So would you say that, Eric? I
completely agree. And that culture that you're talking about, where it's not overwhelming, like, this is our one event, it'll be here for a couple of days, I'll change everything, and it'll be really mad if you don't. There's not that energy. And so what comes is this incremental improvement, and every year it's fun, I think, for the team to come meet with us and tell us what they've come up with, because it's sustainable within their own department, I think. IMEX asks more, but it's paced out at a way that I think has been engaging. And I felt that this year at MGM with the Misfit market idea.
They're on the show floor, right? I can't wait.
People and Planet Village. So trying to there.
That was not something that I even directly asked for, but it was kind of, I guess, enrolling input on what was possible and how can we think differently. Is there something we can do to be new and innovative on the food and beverage front? And ultimately, Cara and the team came back with this idea to us, and it was really great that it came from them.
From the MGM staff.
And awesome. They saw how this could work. It could work financially, operationally, conceptually, and it felt better than us imposing some kind of mandate, because we have enough asks already. But it felt organic and fun.
All right, so tell people what Misfit Market is.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've talked with you quite over the years. And so that's these imperfect produce. How do you use it? How can you educate about that? And it turns out that making juice is a really fun way. Just to put it in the blender, nobody's going to see that it was a lopsided tomato. Well, you're not going to put tomato. Well, you are in juice, right? A lopsided tomato or a carrot that's all twisted up, right?
Yeah, and those poor little apples.
I
feel so sorry for those tiny little apples that never get to see the light of day. And why? They all taste the same.
They do.
They really do taste the same.
And there's so many different flavors of apples. You can change the different.
I call it ugly fruit and veg. And that's, why don't the ugly ones get a place on this? Have their place in some.
Because they also still nourishing.
They're still nourishing. They're still beautiful in their own way. And I think it's wonderful that we actually, to think that we throw that out. What craziness. The human race can be insane, I think. To throw out something that is nutritious, good for you, just because it doesn't look right.
Exactly. Yep.
That doesn't fit with me.
No, and in so many ways it doesn't fit. Yes, exactly. So they came in and are working with MGM, or
this is MGM's food and beverage department.
Really?
And so, to my understanding, this is the first time this outlet has been done at an event.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's at least on the roster to be considered as an option in the future with others, because it fits right in with event, food and beverage like this. And it's also on the level, I think a lot of people are looking for, where can I get some nutritious food on site?
Right.
And I think it's also used in the kitchens, isn't it, for sort of when it goes into sort of salads or goes into
because when you slice the radish up,
you don't know. You don't know what it looks like from the start, do you? So
in addition to, like, that's one way we're trying to reduce food waste, and you know that MGM is quite innovative on that front. But one of the other innovations, and I'm actually hoping to see this in person, so I'll be paraphrasing because I haven't technically seen it yet, but IMEX has a lot of cold food that it can get, because it doesn't have the buffet meals often, and so the rescue here is cold food. Okay. And the food court food this year is actually using the mobile blast chillers, which is actually freezing and cooling the foods. Right. So that are normally used in kind of other purposes. And what this allows is you have a close proximity to food. These are basically mobile trucks they have outside the hall. So it's going to increase our food capture, I think.
So it's going to be outside the hall so we can all see it?
No. I'll take a picture of it. And I don't want to talk too much about the details because I haven't actually seen it yet, but I got to speak with the MGM team, and they were just excited. Again, it's another way that they're stepping up. Trying to, we heard IMEX. How can we fit this vision?
Well, and I talked about them yesterday in session too, is like the donation system that they provided, and they're working with the food bank and blast freezing their food and helping the food bank have the freezers to store it longer, because they can't. It's not boxes of food, right? It's actually prepared food. So I want to see that too. Maybe I'll get Yamas to help me do that too. All right. So we've got. What are your goals for this show? Any new goals that you have? Or
mainly waste. That's always our top one that we focus on.
From the show floor as well as food waste, etc.
All waste from the event. Those are the always. As soon as Eric and I get on a code, what are we going to do? It's going to be waste. And I know Eric can talk more to that because he really does dig deep in the waste. He's been to all the recycling places. He's seen the sorting. I mean, Eric stays on Friday to make sure everything's being done properly. You're incredible, by the way. Go ahead. Yeah. No, I'll let Eric sort of talk to the waste, because that's a huge thing for an event, right? It's the waste.
So it's not just necessarily the waste that's in the trash cans when I'm walking by and dumping something in the trash cans. It's the trade show booth waste as well, right?
Yeah, and that's treated a little differently at MGM. I actually visited Lunus Recycling yesterday. Because it's a new vendor for us, but it was not someone that we worked with when we were at Vans. And so could have had a nicer visit. It was driven personally by one of the MGM waste staff members. It was a great, again, team building, time talk. But one of the things that Lunus shared with us was, it's like, there's no landfill here. We're sort of we handle high weight material. So kind of that move in, move out. It's very much in our best interest to find a home for this. That's awesome. And it was really interesting to hear that perspective and see with my own eyes kind of how they're handling that. Waste is really important for me as well. It's my personal favorite part of sustainable living. You can kind of touch it and see it.
Right.
But I would say that with the pandemic and just taking a break, I've had a chance to pause within myself and sort of, I think success, what that looks like to me, is sort of authentically interfacing with the system as it is. When I was younger or sort of starting out doing this, I felt like I had more of a top-down, like pressuring people to do, like guilt. I feel guilty.
And you hung out with Dale.
To get results. And I feel a little more like, even just walking the show floor today, this space. Tell me, how could we manage this better? Like, where could we, where would a sign be better? What the people are flowing this way, and kind of getting more input has been refreshing to me. And we also, I feel like, have been advancing discussions around carbon emissions. And for the first time this year, our menu coding includes a emissions-friendly icon. I believe we have visions that we can tighten that up even further. Right now, we're looking at the very meta level. Is it neat? Is it chicken, fish. And so it's really big picture. It may never be perfect to have some exactly accurate carbon footprint for a full menu, but I think we're getting closer. And so we took a first step.
Right.
That we can scientifically back that up. And I think it's great. So that's one of the things you also notice is, for example, an Impossible Burger, the Impossible Burger that's on the menu right now.
Right.
If reducing emissions through your choices is important to you, it's about 90% lower emissions than a beef burger in terms of the emissions needed to raise it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's somewhere in that 90% number, and that there's been studies on it. So this kind of conversations are usually to educate attendees about.
And it's getting the data, isn't it, around these things that people go, oh my goodness. And we did Waterwise Wednesdays. We used to do those ones, and that was between bananas and apples, the growing. It's just. I think it's making people sort of go, oh, yeah, maybe I'll just do that instead of that today.
Right.
Or, and just it's just awareness, isn't it? Education and awareness, because I don't think anybody really wants to be bad.
Right. Oh no. Yeah.
I think they all genuinely, if they knew how to be better, they would do it, and also given the means to do it.
Right.
I think if you make it too difficult, people won't do it anyway.
Exactly.
So it's trying to find the means to do it.
Well, actually, recently, some crackers that I eat are by Simple Mills, and they're gluten-free crackers, and they've had the ones I saw first were almond crackers, and now I've found these seed crackers, and which are delicious. And I'm like, you know what? Almonds take more water to grow than anything else. So I'm leaning more to buying their seed crackers now than just their almond crackers. Just that's my one little step, but I have to get me off of almond butter. But I don't buy it. I have my container and I eat it over the course of a month or whatever. But I'm looking more to the seed side of it versus I think the nuts. Because they are water intensive. Yeah. And with the fight in water right now and lack of rain and things like that, we have to.
An interesting food, clearly, as a big water impacting choice. But IMEX America has moved their show dailies digitally this year.
Okay.
This is, again, a place where safety and sustainability can coincide. Right. Just helps not having everyone gather around the same place to grab a daily, but it also saves a ton of water.
Really?
If we were to look at print runs from 2019 and feed them into the most conservative model I could find in terms of paper calculators, I calculated 1.7 million liters of water saved. So what does that mean?
I know.
That means 600 bathtubs filled with water by not printing the show daily.
Wow, that's huge.
If you think of every event, were to do less print, how much water would that be saving?
That's mind-boggling. Wow. Yeah. That's very cool. And you don't think about that water when you're ordering your printing, right?
You don't. I mean, initially I was thinking, paper. Paper was the first thing, not water. Water was when Eric pointed out the water. I was like, well, of course you have to make the paper, right?
You have
to get to that point. So it's just that education. It's learning as you go along and trying to be better, right?
And we just need to try. Nobody's perfect. Yes, we try to be better. So going forward, what's your next goal?
Would you like to say?
Oh, no, you could.
It's a little premature, and I don't speak for IMEX on this, but I think there's a desire to figure out ways that we can have a even better and science-based emissions inventory for the event.
Okay.
We feel like we've really been able to have an airtight carbon footprint of our on-site activities. And we had a session yesterday on Smart Monday talking about carbon footprints for the events industry. And one of the things that we said is there's not one size fits all. It's an inventory. And so I think drawing those boundaries and can we get better data from our suppliers? A lot of times you hear about scope 3, their supply chain. How can we keep it actionable, maybe fun and easy? So we have some ideas. And how can we get better attendee travel information? You've heard of the JMIC pledge, other pledges out there. And it's difficult to make progress on those if you don't know what you're trying to make progress against. So I think we can speak more coherently to it if we advance that. So that's something I'd like to do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I was here in Vegas a week ago, and I live in North Carolina. And I had to be here. I'm not going to fly all the way back to North Carolina to go turn around and come back. So I went to California. And spent the week there, and it's still on a plane, but it was a shorter plane ride. I really, to be honest with you, was not thinking about the sustainability. It's more the time zone change for me.
Yeah.
But I think about it. I'm like, I did reduce my emissions and my carbon footprint to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I was on a plane, it was a little bit smaller.
The other side of it that Eric pointed out was a lot of people come here to do their business.
Mm-hmm.
They come here to book their meetings.
Right.
So he said, so in theory, you probably are cutting out a lot of other trips that would be made by coming to do your business in one place once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never measured that. Another thing that we could be looking at measuring. There's so many angles you could look at this.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
That's a really good point. And from a different show a long time ago, they're like, yeah, we analyzed numbers of how much money we made at this one show. They were the number one exhibitor, and they pulled out, and then they went regional because they went to their people. But if we could flip that around and think about it differently and get the people there somehow, because we talk about going regionally because you don't have to travel as far, but that's kind of what you just said, is flipping that coin a little bit.
Yeah, flip the coin, come and do 5 pieces of business in one place.
Right.
Instead of going 5 different places to do the business.
It's something I've talked to a number of people, and we all kind of feel like there's something to this.
Right.
But at the same time, we want to be very cautious to not flip this as greenwashing or glossing over something. But if you talk to almost anyone on that show floor, you get the sense that this is a chance to consolidate meetings into a single trip.
Right.
Instead.
We would have to do more research around that. 100%. We would have to talk to people. Has this saved you any trips in the year, or will you still do those trips? Until we have data, there's nothing. We would not claim any of that.
Well, and then also just the face-to-face, right? Because more business happens around a cocktail table.
Yes.
Or a lunch table, right? And then just being in an exhibit booth, because you're having that conversation, you're getting to know them, even if it's a short amount of time, instead of doing it on a Zoom call, because you can't break bread on a Zoom call, really.
It's very difficult, isn't it?
It is.
You don't have the same experience. You have your bread and I have mine.
Right, exactly.
It's not the same.
It is not the same. Okay. All right, just random comment. So last week was the climate summit, and I know there was a big push from our industry in that. Can you talk a little bit about that at all? I mean, I didn't really follow it too much. So
I have not been digesting much in the news front the last couple of weeks, but I am aware of COP26, and I'm aware of some of our industry's commitments, expressions of commitment there, and the challenges.
Yeah.
And it is a challenge. And my personal sense is that no one really has the answer.
No.
But these pledges, I would say, I had a call with Nolan and Roger from IMEX regarding thinking about Frankfurt.
Right.
And what could we do with the pledge coming out? And it just triggered some fresh thinking for us. So if all it did was just get us to have that meeting and check in some new ways we could gather data, for instance, could we get a more accurate travel footprint number through registration technology?
Right.
Maybe, we don't know yet, but we're going to look into it. Could we require our suppliers to fill in some basic fields about themselves? And we do that for GES on site here, but could we extend the network a little bit to understand, well, what is the biggest part of our net here? So I think that those can be really powerful. Pledges can be just pledges and empty, but if used properly, it catalyzes great conversation for our industry.
Right.
Site selection, like IMEX has modeled, make it part of what you're asked in the beginning. Choose your destination.
Right.
With that in mind.
Okay.
That is one. Education around travel. You can look at Google Flights. You can pick the lowest emissions flight. It's right there. You get a number. There are ways that when you do meet together, there might be ways that you could offset that. An opt-in offset it's not quite appropriate for the IMEX model right now, but for other events, we've had that $8 fee right in there that you can opt it out of. You basically get a carbon fund.
Wow.
Enroll sponsors. And also renewable energy.
Okay.
Again, even as a planner, if you're stuck with a destination, you can ask, what is the venue sourcing or generating energy? A lot of places are these days. Spokane, Washington, we were there 2 years ago. That venue takes advantage of being in the Northwest. It's all hydropowered. So it's the energy is emissions free. The planner may have never known that if they hadn't asked.
Right.
The mega solar array that's powering 90% of our daylight hours activities here by renewable energy.
Yeah, that's where Eric went yesterday.
That's that solar farm, right?
Yes,
yeah. That's amazing. 90% of daily hours. It does change over the course of a 24-hour day.
Right.
It's about 30% for all MGM resorts on the Strip.
Oh, wow.
Throughout the 24-hour period. But it's amazing. It's and it's going to be growing. And these are kind of ways, if you want to be responsible climate planner.
Right.
We've talked about food choices, material choices, but addressing travel a little bit, addressing your destination selection, addressing the energy mix. I think you'd be in the right direction if you do something on one of those.
Awesome. There's so much to think about, and I'm so proud and impressed by everything that you've done over the last 10 years. So thank you for being that model. But what can somebody who's not going to Sands and not going to MGM, who are very much at the forefront, kind of do? I mean, you just mentioned a few things, but just 3 things that you think as the planner, hiring Eric, what are the 3 things that you think? And then what are 3 things that you can give us, Eric?
Well, I would say as a planner, always focus on your waste.
Okay.
To start with, because it's like Eric said, it's tangible. You can see results. You can you can measure it actually quite quickly. Actually measure it, which I think gives you a sense of reward and achievement. And I think that's quite a big thing for a lot of planners. They need to see the results. So waste is one area. I would also say get it very much from the beginning of your event. So make sure you've got people on board at the beginning. Because if you haven't, it's going to be too difficult for you as a lone planner to struggle through the sustainability journey on your own, and you will give up halfway through, because if you're not getting support from your suppliers, from your company, it's going to be too difficult. And then a third one, I think, is just stay determined. Actually, stay determined on your journey and don't give up, because sustainability is not easy, but it's very rewarding. Right. So don't give up on it.
That's awesome. I like that. Eric?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Huge shout out to starting early and that getting it on the radar, that it's linked to the client's view of success. That has moved so many mountains if the venue understands that that's important. But on the ground, I would counsel to look into food and beverage a little bit. And if you're going to fight some battles, collaboratively fun battles, but if you're going to negotiate, reusable serviceware.
Yes.
Eliminating single-use plastic water bottles in your contracted food and beverage. You often can't get to the little markets venue because it's just, people do need to actually buy water occasionally. But in terms of your catered and contracted food and beverage, eliminating that. And then the third, having one meat-free meal per like 100% meat-free meal, plant-based meal on your menu. You will see a tremendous emissions and water savings that can be tangible. There are equations you can do to celebrate and share with everybody.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you both so much for spending time with me. Next year is going to be here at MGM. IMEX America 2022. What are the dates?
They've just been moved, and I believe they're from the 10th of October now, but don't take my word for it. Look on the website. It has been moved earlier in October, so I believe it's the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th of October, but double check that one.
And then what's the website address? Go to check.
It's imexamerica.com, www.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Eric, how do people find out about you and MeetGreen?
MeetGreen.com.
Okay, that's easy enough. And you got lots of great tools on the website to measure things and learn from.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you both so much. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right, you guys, see you on the show floor.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.